Okay, Pluto, never forget. So I'm gonna today just put on a couple of door handles onto these bathroom lower cabinets. Go through just a couple of doors really quick. The instructions confirm what the placement already kind of says, that the top hole should be about 2.5 inches from the top of the door. So that'll just put it approximately right there. So that's pretty standard anyway, but that's what the instructions show that it came with. So I'm going to use, I have 3 different, what are going to be Phillips head screwdrivers, a drill, a screwdriver, and then just a hand screwdriver. But you're just going to need a Phillips screwdriver, and then a drill with a drill bit, of course, and then the handle. And that's really it. It's pretty simple. The hard part is to get these exactly centered. So I've already mentioned it's going to be 2.5 inches from the top, but then you just make sure you're centered right here in the face of this. So you can see between C1 and 2.25, so that is 1.25 inches wide. So half of that is going to be 5/8 of an inch. So I'm just going to go 2.5 inches from the top, 5/8 inches from this face, so it's exactly in the center. Okay, so I'm just going to measure this. Again, the most important thing about these is that these two line up, because you don't want it to be way off. So super easy to make that happen though. All you do, so I know that 5/8 is approximately in the center of that, so I'm just going to go down to 2.5 inches. Put the teeniest of marks there. And then I'm going to go 5/8 from the side. So I'm just starting here at any number I want to. So there's 5. So I want to go to 5/8, which is exactly where that line is. Half is there, and 1/8 more is 5/8. So that is exactly 2.5 inches down, 5/8 over. Go. So I'm just going to drill one quick starter hole here. And since this placement has to be exact, this is a 3/16 inch bit to go along with this, but that is again in the instructions. Anything you're going to put on like these will always tell you the size drill bit to use, and always follow it. So I'm just going to do a quick, you just want to get exactly where that is and just give it a little push. So you know exactly where that is. And then you could technically just kind of let gravity do its thing and let it hang there. But we want to measure how far down this is. I like to be exact, so you can put it right here. I want to know exactly from center to center. So that is from 4 to 7. That is exactly 3 inches from center to center, exactly. So that's 3 inches. So from here, this was 2.5 inches plus 3. I'm going to go to 5.5. And then I need to be 5/8 of an inch. And I know I'm not there yet. So I'm going to go from 5 over to 5/8, which is going to be right there. So I'm just going to again start the same thing here. The lighting in here is not good. That second hole is right there. And again, I'm just going to give it a little bit of start, just pushing on it. So now you've got the 2 holes there. And I always like to make sure. So that should be perfect. So again, just make sure you double check and measure. What's the expression? Measure twice, cut once. So I've started these a little bit, so I'm just going to barely start because you want to have the door open, just so you're not drilling through the actual cabinet. And I'm going to start this bottom one. I'm just barely starting them just so that I know I'm good. Okay, and always go from the side that's going to show and drill that way, because if you started on this side and drilled out, there's usually a little piece that pushes out and it can splinter the wood as the drill bit comes through. So always go finished side, start on the finished side, the side you want to look the best, and go the other way. So you just want to go straight through. This is not hardwood, so you don't have to get too excited about it. Here's the second one. And that's through. You just want to get those little pieces off of there too, so that the handle will fit properly. So then, very simple now. Get that screw hole. And then you're just barely starting each one of these. I'm just starting it with my hand. And this is where, if you want to just have a little bit of a manual touch, I'm just using a manual screwdriver, just so I don't put anything on too tight yet. We've got a little room to play there. That way you can line it up exactly. And I'm lining this one up exactly. Now you don't want to use a drill, because if you used a drill here, you could have too much power on it. You can use either a regular screwdriver or just your cordless screwdriver. And if you don't know, a drill is about, I don't know, say 10 times more power than a screwdriver. Really, a cordless screwdriver is just, it's a manual screwdriver. It just has a little power behind it, so you don't have to keep working. This has tons of power, and since this is just a very thin piece of wood, you don't want to get too much power in there. So you can use a little cordless screwdriver if you want. Just don't over tighten. And I'm doing that on purpose, just barely pushing, because I just don't want to over tighten it. And once it's in there pretty snug, you can use a manual screwdriver if you want, or get somebody that you're familiar with their strength and just tighten it down a little bit. I mean, you want it to be tight, but you don't want to have to try really hard, because it'll stay on there. So that's one handle, and I'll do the other one also, but it's that simple. So we already put on one door handle on the lower bathroom cabinet. Now we're just going to go through another one, and remember, we just need the drill bit. In this case, the instructions said a 3/16 inch drill bit. So I just have, I have a really detailed drill bit set, but I also just have your basic, I think it's just an 11-piece set, which are the most commonly used drill bits. So, and plus you're saving money if you're just getting the most commonly used ones. And then I've got a cordless screwdriver, and of course I have my drill, and then, a knife, but I would just use those. You ever need a faster way to open things like this? You just slice open with your knife, and you can slide them right out. Okay, so let's measure this one. All right, so if you remember, the instructions mentioned to put the top hole between 2.5 and 3 inches down from the top. Our daughter, whose cabinets these are, preferred having them higher, so the hole is 2.5 inches from the top, so on the higher end. So, and if you remember, the middle of this face was exactly 5/8 of an inch. So the center of that hole is 5/8 of an inch in the middle of this facing and 2.5 inches from the top. And there were exactly 3 inches between this hole and this hole. So I'm just gonna do the same thing here. If I was gonna do 20 of these doors, you could get a piece of cardboard as a cutout, or even a little 1/8 inch piece of wood and make a little template. But I'm only gonna be putting on 6 of these, and I'm very comfortable with a tape measure. So I'm just gonna measure these myself. So I know this is from the top, this is 2.5 inches, and this was another 3 inches, so that's a hole at 2.5 inches and 5.5 inches, and 5/8 inch in the center of that face. So I'm going to measure this same thing here. So there are, I mentioned earlier, I think there's a DeWalt tape measure. This is just one I've had for 20 years probably. There's a DeWalt tape measure, and there may be others that say 1/8, 1/4, 3/8, 1/2, 5/8, 3/4, 7/8. And for people that aren't as familiar with the tape measure, it might be really helpful for you to get that. So all you're doing here is, I know I'm going to be approximately in the center, because I'm just using a very light pencil mark. Remember, I want to go 2.5 inches from the top, and I want to go, I'm trying to do this from the light, but I'm going to have to do it the other way. I want to go 2.5 inches from the top. I'm going to do this approximately in the center. Two and a half and 5.5. Okay, and then I want to be 5/8 of an inch from that face. So I am too far there. So I need to be, see how I can hold this. See, I'm about 1/8 of an inch too far. I'm at 3/4 of an inch. So I need to be at 5/8. And then here I'll need to be the same 5/8. Yep, the same thing there. And 5/8 is going to be right there. Okay. Okay, so I pushed in the hole, same spot, 2.5 inches from the top, 5/8 in the center, 5.5 inches from the top, remember 3 inches between, and 5/8 inches from the center. So just a couple of quick starter holes. This is a little bit bad lighting. I'm in the corner of a bathroom. So, and then again, you want to just get it started. You always want to stay nice and level too. Just keep your eye on the drill bit as you're going. And you just want to make sure that you're not hitting on the inside of that. So again, this is just some pretty thin wood. So I'm just doing this myself. So I'm through. And I'm just backing off. And again, just rubbing both sides to make them smooth, because there's going to be very tight tolerances there. So the top one's done. And then the bottom one, same thing. Again, just don't put too much torque, but just a little bit, always toward where you're drilling. One thing that I forgot to mention, when I'm working around bathrooms, I always put a little towel in the sink just in case screws or anything happen to fall in there, just so that they're not going to go down the drain. You can also push the stopper down, which I did, but just in case. So, got both holes drilled in here, and then just again make sure that each side is nice and smooth, because there's not a lot of room once the screw gets through here. You've got one screw, and you can see it just barely fits on the other side, which is how you want it. And same with that one. So I just like to get one of them started. It doesn't have to be in the right spot. Just barely started with a manual screwdriver. That way I've got plenty of play on this bottom one. Just make sure he's lining up right. And usually you don't want to just tighten one. You want to go back and forth if you can. It's not a big deal, but just so it has the tension on both handles, both screws. And again, you could use a cordless screwdriver if you want. I just prefer with something this, something that's not real sturdy wood, to use a manual screwdriver. And just, a little bit tight. You don't want to make it too tight. Sometimes I will actually use my other hand. I'm right-handed. I'll use my left hand on purpose so I can't tighten it as much because I don't want to over tighten and strip these threads. So there you go. So perfectly lined up straight, the left handle and the right handle. So I just got several more to do. I just wanted to show you how easy that can be. The most important thing is get those holes lined up properly. All right, so we've got both of the door handles on nice and straight. Just wanted to make sure that you could see what they look like. It's really simple to do. The most important thing is to make sure that you measure correctly. And again, you've got that DeWalt tape measure, and I'm sure others make it too, that if you need it, if you're newer to it, that have the little fraction numbers themselves written out on your tape measure. All right, thank you. Have fun.